Welcome to the first episode of a new show, a new idea. Something different. Double-edged sports talk. Um, the concept for it really is looking at different ideas and different things within sports, and looking at the positives, the negatives, the yin and the yang of those things that have been implemented, how they've changed over the years, how they've gotten worse, improved, the different things that you can add in terms of what it means to be, a football fan or a sports fan in general, and dealing with these new kind of concepts and things. Obviously, with the way technology is going, the way that sports have changed, how have both technological advances and different other things have factored into the sport. For this first episode, I've decided to look at a thing called VAR, video assistant refereeing. Now, give me 1 second, one take. Anyway, VAR, video assistant refereeing, something that's been recently introduced into football, especially in the Premier League and top tier sports, and it's something that I think has both positive and negative effects of it. I think the positives are that there's a lot of rules that are being looked at, and in regards to dangerous tackling, in terms of certain fouls, in terms of certain decisions. I think having a second look at something in slow motion gives the referee maybe a bit more time to kind of look at things. But on the other hand, the black and white, well, the grey decisions, not so much the black and white ones, the grey decisions are the ones where it's allowing for a lot more discussion, a lot of time wasting in regards to how long it takes for these decisions to be made. I think the different implementations of technology in football has both been good and bad. I think the good things about VAR, for me, I feel like when it comes to black and white decisions, such as offsides, whether the ball's gone out or not, red cards, decision making, those kind of things, I feel like it allows for those to be looked at again, because you can see a challenge once and maybe deem it a yellow, but if you see it and it's dangerous, it's high, I think it makes sense to have a double look at it, in those black and white decisions where you can clearly tell that it's a red card, clearly tell if it's a penalty or not, clearly tell if it's offside or not. I think technology helps in those kind of situations. But in the grey areas where it's like handballs, where it's tackles that are yellowish, or situations where the ref isn't allowed to kind of do his job and is kind of using the VAR to back him up. Well, either to back him up or to cover his mistakes, rather than, I think it's wrong. I feel like VAR should be independent from refereeing. I don't think it should be a referee in the VAR room. I think it should be an independent reviewer, maybe even ex-pros that look at these things. I think there's updates and improvements that can be made, and I feel like the referees need to be able to be retrained in the use of the technology and to be able to have more freedom to make the decision themselves. I think more and more it's a man in a building rather than the referee that is refereeing the match, and I think that allows for a lot more corruption, a lot more variation in decision making, and a much more controversial sport than it was before. In the black and white decisions, your offsides, your red cards, uh, penalties, most penalties, not some penalties, the grey ones, it doesn't help. But most situations, I think more often than not, VAR gets them right. I do think the offside. I think the rule sets of are also a problem, because the wording of rules clear and obvious. For example, how when it comes to offsides, for example, even a little inch, how does that make a big difference for the offensive player? If it's a clear an obvious offside, if they're like a length or multiple inches, multiple body parts of difference, then it makes sense. But if they're on the same wavelength and you're looking at little toe, then I think in those cases, I think the offside shouldn't be given, and I think the offense should be given the doubt. Sometimes you can get offside for just putting your hand up like a normal football interaction, oh, I need the ball here, because you did it in front rather than backwards, you're offside. And I think that's, for me, I think it's a mixture of the rule sets being very unclear, the referees not being good enough, especially in England, and VAR taking over control of the referee's decision making. And I think these culminates in both the positive and negative feelings towards it. I feel like it's good in the sense of, a lot back in the day there was a lot of things that were, you know, went away, like, whoa, kind of happened that didn't happen, especially when it comes to the goal line technology, for example, and the technology itself in terms of, you know, certain goals that went in that weren't looked at. I think for those kind of decision making situations, I think technology is needed, but I feel like there needs to be a retraining of referees at the highest level. And for me, for example, in England, I think is refereeing is the only position in which, in sports, in which it's not an international flavor. You know, you only have English refs, and they all support teams within England, and because of that, they can't refs these games or that games. But it seems to me, when it comes to the footballers, the managers, everything else, even the ownership, is non-English. But when it comes to refereeing, it's not like we look around the world to get the best of the best, and I feel like we have the best in everything within the Prem at this current moment, but not the refereeing. And I think VAR has kind of allowed for a much more lazy approach from refereeing, and I feel like giving more power to the referees going forward, making only the decisions being checked, the black and white ones. Um, I feel like in terms of red cards, it also should be, if I think yellow cards should be checked, especially if it's a second yellow card offense that leads to a red. I think that should be checked as well, because I feel like sometimes those second yellows, or one of the, for me, isn't, and I feel like that can have a bigger impact on the game. So anything that impacts the game in a big way and it's a black and white decision, cool. Technology, I'm fine with. But the grey areas is where I feel like the referees need to be able to be retrained to do their job properly, to be able to make the right decisions more than often than not. And if needs be, if it's a black and white decision, then technology can get involved and make a change. But in the grey areas, just let the referees do their thing. Um, some referees are more lenient than others, some more aggressive, some more different. But I think that's what makes the game a bit more fun, because then you know, okay, I'm with this ref, he's gonna give this, not give that. It kind of allows for games to be feel different and the sport to be more entertaining, because I think the entertainment factor of the sport has lost its kind of value with VAR, because you score a goal and you're waiting 5-10 minutes to see if the goal goes through. You can't even celebrate properly no more. Limbs don't feel the same. You know, you get the high of scoring the goal. Oh, VAR checking, waiting 5-10 minutes, and by the time you get given the goal, the adrenaline, the pump, the excitement of being a match day going fan, or watching on TV is gone. And I also think that the referees, just like in other sports, should have, and they've started to implement it, but should have at least, I like the fact that they've implemented the mic situation where they actually explain their decision making, and I think that should be something that should continue going forward, because I think that's the positive of it, is that allowing for the referee to explain the decision, so that when people in the stadium and out knows what the due process is, and what their thoughts and why they've made the decision. You see a lot in NFL, they check, or basketball, they check it, they go into the mic, tell the people what the decision is, and then it goes on from there. But I think the positives, for me, have do outweigh the negatives, in the sense of, I feel like a lot of things um that are checked are making the right. I think more and more decisions are being right, but it's the ones that are wrong that are being flagged up more often. Because when it comes to human being nature and human nature, people look at the negative things. They look at the negatives. Well, I think if you look at it in totality, I think VAR is more good than bad. Now, I have watched football without VAR. I'm started to watch the women's game, and I think benefit of them having no VAR in their games is, I think the referees are able to make the decisions more often than not, and sure, they miss things, but I feel like it allows for a much more free flowing game. So I think it needs to be an in between, where black and white technology, not black and white the grey areas. Just let the referee do their job, and if it is an egregious mistake, then get involved, because at least then you're affecting the game in a positive way by making the right decisions rather than having grey areas where the ref thinks one thing, the V.A.R thinks another thing, the fans think another thing, the manager thinks another thing, the other manager thinks another thing, the players on the field have, and then you have five, six, seven different opinions on a decision where it should just be down to one man, and that's the main referee. And I think having a restructure of V.A.R going forward into that kind of black and white to grey area kind of will allow for a better overall. But yeah, I think that's, for me personally, my personal opinion. I prefer football without VAR, just because I just feel like, as I said, it's a bit more free flowing and the referees are able to do their jobs in the women's game. If the ref makes a mistake, it's a mistake. The only thing I would say is the lines women in women's sports are make too many bad decisions. So offsides, I love the fact that there's technology now, but it has to be a little bit less. The ruling needs to change to be where it's an obvious advantage for the offensive team rather than it just being inches or little minuscule differences. And if they can change that, change the ruling, change the wording and the verbiage of the ruling, I think, and making the rules less anal in that sense, a little bit, at making it much more clear for people to understand what the rules are as fans and as referees and as, both in the stadium and out, I think would allow for a better product overall. Because at the end of the day, it's just a game, it's sports, it's entertainment, and we want it to be entertaining. And we love for it, we bleed for it. But if you look at other sports, they're using technology in a much better way, and I think we need to look to other sports and how they allow for the sport to be a lot better place. And also, I think there needs to be an implementation of a lot more respect into to the referee, um, and that can be done by giving them more of the decision making going forward rather than it being a man in a box. But yeah, it's been African King Academy, the first episode, the trial, or not trial, but the pilot episode of Double Edge Sports Talks, and there'll be a lot more conversations to be had. And please comment down below, like, subscribe to this second channel, and put out your thoughts on V.A.R. What do you like, what you dislike, and let me know. Peace and love, African King Academy, and I'm out.